Welcome back to Recovering from Everything, a podcast for everyone who has ever had anything happen to them ever. I am your host. I exist. I'm alive. Kinga. We're going to get real about the things that have held us back and talk about some of the courage that it takes to break free from some of our stuff. I apologize for being MIA for 3 or 4 months. I've been having real life experiences, which I will now be, exploiting for content. What would the Recovering from Everything brand be if I weren't always recovering from something? So today we're going to get real, we're going to get raw, and I will be sharing some personal stuff. I'm not going to do names. I still honestly, genuinely think that I should have some sort of like paid hub where I do include names and any sort of like identifying details, but I'm not gonna. Not yet, anyway. So I am here in my home office, in my workspace. A lot of magic happens here, so I thought I would bring the pod here. I'm still in my work clothes, still wearing a bra. Disgusting. But it is 4:30. I thought I would just hammer out this beautiful podcast before removing my bra. And gonna do a cold plunge today, tonight, and plunge and sauna and do some contrast therapy because guys, Mercury is in retrograde. Venus is in retrograde. There was an eclipse recently, and I have broken the rules of Mercury retrograde, which I will sort of get into in this podcast. And shame, Kinga, shame on me. But that's okay. I have since recovered. Today's a brand new day. I feel amazing today, which is why I feel so inclined to do a little bit of a reflection on this podcast. So away we go. Let me first start with the relationship that you guys have all survived through with me has ended. I don't know if anyone was able to read between the lines. Why am I so shiny? It's because I have a really good moisturizer. Anyways, I ended that relationship back in November. And if you listen to my podcast from November, December, you probably would have picked up on that, though I wasn't ready to share about that yet in such an explicit way. That is not the topic of today's podcast, but I just kind of want to give you a brief intro into what was going on. I keep getting DMs from people asking if I am still dating my ex-boyfriend. On what planet is that okay? It is not okay. I just keep ignoring them, but they should listen to the pod, and maybe I will just send them the link to this podcast, because if I'm gonna share stuff, it's gonna be on my own terms and not because a stranger has decided to DM me if I'm dating this person anymore. Anyways, I ended it. I had basically the shittiest birthday. I had a great birthday. Unfortunately, my time with this man was sandwiched in between 2 great portions of my birthday. So Friday was awesome. It was my family. And then I had given him this day because the year prior he had made such a freaking stink about it that, like, of course. Oh, anyways. And then that day sucked, and I felt like I was absolutely meaningless, and it was so stupid, and I honestly don't know why I was forced to be a part of that. And then the next day my girlfriends came over for lunch, and by then I had cried all morning and was like, I think I need to end my relationship. And so then I did. I just sent a little text and said, listen, I need a few days to think about things. I will get at you when I get at you. And so a few days later, I did. We had the conversation. He was quote unquote blindsided, which is so infuriating because, fellas, there is no reason for you to be blindsided if you are paying attention to your relationship and if you have even an ounce of capability to self-reflect. So that was obnoxious. Anyways, I did really super well, really leaned into my feminine energy. I watched Wicked a lot and listened to the soundtrack a lot. And I, was going to the gym and I felt pretty good. There were moments where I was sort of on like a single on purpose journey. Anyways, there were definitely moments where I felt like I was craving male attention or validation, but I had committed to being single, so I didn't really act on it. About a month and a half after our breakup, this man calls me at 9:30 at night. My do not disturb is on. It goes on promptly at like 8 or 9 p.m. And so I end up having 2 missed calls from him. So I took a screenshot, obviously, texted one of my girlfriends, and this is how I have like a hair trigger for this stuff, especially when it comes to men. My first feeling was fear. What did I do wrong? What is he calling to yell at me about? I felt afraid. And so my girlfriend's like, fuck that shit. You have nothing to be afraid about anymore. You're not in this relationship. So I ended up calling him back and I was like, are you okay? It was a lot of crying. It was a lot of words. And ultimately I was like, I'm not your mom. If you're having big feelings, call a therapist. So about a month after that, I had big feelings and I did not call a therapist. I called him and called him crying, and he was far kinder and softer to me than I was to him. And anyway, I ended up agreeing to try counseling with him. So it's so embarrassing. This is how I started 2025, you guys, okay? Going to counseling that I set up with a man that I had broken up with repeatedly and finally over the last 5 years. Oh, Kinga. Okay. Anyways. So we did 4 sessions of weekly counseling. He lashed out at me twice, and the final time was ridiculous, and it was big, and it was the thing I needed to finally have that switch turned off and like taped shut, and the electrician came and unscrewed the electricity and flung the light switch out my window. Like, that's how done I was. Which brings us to the topic of today's podcast, the situationship that I found myself in a few weeks later. Let's go. Okay, so do you ever find yourself like gripping on to something or someone? For many of us, it's people. For some of us, it's alcohol. Because letting go of it feels unbearable. That was me. And I'm going to bring you inside of my brain, my body, and my heart through this experience. Because even though this is about a guy, it's not really about him. It's about me. It's about breaking cycles. It's about learning what love actually feels like, and realizing that for a long time, I had it all wrong. And what happened with this situationship was just a repeating behavior pattern for me, and a thinking pattern. So I want to take you back to where it all began. Blame the parents. But I want to take you back to my earliest memories of love, because it all matters. So I was 2 years old when my dad left. So my, OG podcast listeners know my immigration story, is my dad left when I was two, and not because he wanted to, but because he had to. So my parents joined forces and came up with this elaborate plan, for a escape for my dad from a really sort of dangerous Romanian government situation. And my father was the first to leave. And so for 2 years, my mom was alone with my sister and I. My grandma was kind of helping take care of my sister, who was very wee. Um, and so the only sort of experience or connection I had with my dad was through the occasional phone call. And, it was the 80s, it was Eastern Europe. Long distance phone calls were $1 bajillion. And so these phone calls were few and far between. And I was so little. So it was just like a voice of this man that had been very present in my life and was suddenly removed. And it was just his voice on the phone. Just a voice floating sort of in and out of my life. Then when I was four and a half, we reunited in Canada, right? My dad sponsored us all to come out, and he had established himself there and whatever. So we all reunited in Canada. So I don't necessarily have a memory of missing him, but I know enough about how attachment works now that I know that that was extremely damaging and sort of shaped the way that I view male relationships up until last week. I am 41 and a half years old now, you guys. Anyways, so um I imagine that the way that I processed what love from and with a male, I imagine that I processed it as it could be distant. In fact, it was distant, and that love could exist somewhere else, not near me, um, not that love could be a voice on the phone checking in on me, but not checking, mm, but not with me. So that story imprinted itself onto my nervous system. Obviously, there's evidence of it. And wasn't, conscious of it, but I lived it. And even 5 years ago, when I became conscious of it, that didn't necessarily mean that I had healed entirely from it. Again, there is evidence of it up until last week. So I put myself through that over and over and over and over. And sometimes it was with men, for months. And with my last relationship, it was 5 years. And with this situationship, it was 3 weeks. It was only 3 weeks, but it was 3 weeks. If we're thinking about my last relationship, that was 5 years off and on, really, really stressful for me, basically the entire time. But it was 5 years of being with someone who was there physically, sort of sometimes, but not really there. So it was 5 years of feeling like I was screaming into a void, waiting for him to turn around and just like see me. And that was at the tail end of our relationship. I was like, I don't feel seen. I don't feel heard. I don't feel like I'm a part of this at all. And it sort of culminated in the day that was my birthday, where I was like, you don't see me at all. I am here to I'm serving some sort of purpose for him. None of this was about me. So it took me, oh, and the worst part is like I kept trying to earn it. Like I worked so hard to earn this person's love. Same with my situationship, to be good enough, to be lovable enough, to be patient enough, so that one day he would just wake up and realize like what he had in front of him. And according to his words, he had that repeatedly. According to his actions, no, he fucking didn't. So, I told myself like I could endure the distance, the big like emotional chasm, and like even the physical distance. Like this was good. Like I don't want anything more. Um that they're like we love each other and like this is fine. But I probably just worked really hard to rationalize that I could survive on very little. So it took me 5 years to finally say, I'm done. I'm done feeling meaningless to someone. And yet, even after I left, I found myself repeating the same pattern. So it was this last situationship. It was with a man who gave me like just enough to keep me hooked, but never enough to feel secure. And if you've ever found yourself chasing someone who is emotionally unavailable, you know exactly what I mean. They're not giving you what you need, but somehow that makes you want it even more. Um, I was analyzing every message, every like on social media, every little breadcrumb that was like getting thrown my way. And then when I would feel him pull away, it was like a fire in my brain, just like screaming for someone to dump water on it. We know how dramatic I am. Okay. So the latest guy, the one I thought this episode was going to be about, was no different. Like that was sort of what I'd put myself through over and over and over and over for the last, God, almost a decade. Um so I reached out. I had ended it, and then probably about 5 days later, I reached out. I sent a long text, multiple paragraphs of my feelings. Guys, don't kill me. I don't listen. It was temporary insanity. I sent a long text of my feelings. I was struggling. I like really needed some answers. Um, and let me tell you what happened. Nothing. Literally nothing. No response. Just silence. Okay. But the following day he watched my Instagram stories, so that means something, right? Oh my God. Anyways, his silence felt like rejection again for the billionth time in this like situationship that I was in, like proof that I wasn't worth a reply, right? Like I was screaming into the void and he had chosen to put on noise canceling headphones. And while I was waiting for a response to my text, I was also rationalizing and making up reasons why he like couldn't. Like just dumb shit with what like limited information I had about his life. Anyways, it was so stupid. Okay, so then the next morning I saw that he had watched my Instagram story and it was like instant relief. Like, oh my gosh, he does care. He still cares. He's there. But was he? No. I was clinging to scraps and trying to make a 5-course meal out of breadcrumbs, basically. So the dopamine hit because I knew that's what was happening. I had actually like articulated that to him where I was like, I think I'm addicted to the dopamine I get when I like see you pop up on my phone or on my Instagram. Um, because I'm so smart, but I just was ridiculous for a few weeks. Anyways, that dopamine hit lasted, 30 seconds. And then obviously I crashed. Um, because watching a story, like, that's not love. That's not presence. That's not choosing me. That's like the barest minimum of existence. So I like had to ask myself, like, is this what I want? Is this how I want to feel again? And it took me years to realize that these situations weren't coincidences. Like, I literally had been in this exact same situation multiple times before. So that's why this podcast isn't about him or them. It's about me, because these are my patterns, and the patterns aren't random. They are wired into me from childhood, from relationships, from a lifetime of being conditioned to earn love instead of just receiving it. The feminine nature of just receiving. No, I had to work for it. And the men I'd been drawn to, they all have something in common: distance, unavailability, literal, like physical distance for the majority of them, but also emotional distance. Like, how cyclical is that of me to pick men who are like physically far away from me and also emotionally far away from me? So it was that the same exact thing with my dad, who was in a literal other country. That sense of love being like just out of reach, because that's what I learned love looks like with a man. um but here's the thing, that's not love. I don't know if I know what love is. I mean, the only real like healthy-ish relationship I can compare it to is the one I had with my ex-husband, and it was very like, I rarely felt insecure. He was physically close. We spent time together. We lived together. We built a life together. That's kind of, obviously it wasn't perfect. Otherwise we would still be married. But I do, I mean, much of it I think is just we stopped being each other's people. Um, that's another episode. Anyways, um, so I don't necessarily know what love is, but I sure as shit know what it's not. Love isn't something that I have to beg for, where I have to like sell myself to someone in pictures, in like, slutty lingerie, in keeping myself quiet, in sort of being like malleable to like suit what I think someone wants of me. Like, I just selling myself. That's not love. Um and I think a part of me changed in this situationship. I've known him for a long time, and he'd been following me on Instagram also for 5 years. And so if any of you follow me on Instagram, I literally do whatever the fuck I want on Instagram. I look any type of way. I screech into microphones pretty consistently. Like, I no fucks are given. So that's who he had grown accustomed to. And in hindsight now, I do think I like adjusted myself a little bit now that I was in a situationship, and I sort of like dulled myself and lessened myself. Because I have this fear that I'm too much. I'm too much, that people need to move to a different fucking country just to get away from me. So that's not love. And I think deep down I maybe have always known that. And I truly am proud of myself for ending it after 3 weeks, because I can't believe I did that shit for like months or like 5 years at once. Um, what I learned after the breakup, November and December, and what I'm learning now in the last couple of days, is that when I'm alone, I am the best version of myself. I am so peaceful. I feel so free. I am dancing around my house listening to loud music. Like, I am the best version of myself when I am not in a relationship. And not that I will never be in a relationship, but because the relationships that I've been in have been so devastating and so hard on me that I haven't been able to be 100% myself. Um, I feel really free when I'm not waiting for a text. Guys, if I were to add up the hours in the last 8 years, let's say since my split from my ex-husband, the hours that I've spent checking my phone, waiting for a text, it's it's years of my life. Years of my life waiting for, oh my God, that's, I can't even believe I'm saying that out loud, but like that's the truth. So when I'm not in that state, I feel free. I feel light. I feel expansive. I feel focused on my career and my family. Like my life belongs to me again. Um, and I mean, that's made me question everything that I want from future relationships. Like and I felt like this after I got out of my last relationship is like I can't picture the person that is out there for me. Um especially now that I'm like, if I'm happiest on my own, I mean, I will not be settling for anything that makes me feel worse than I do now. I'd like to think I'm not going to do that again, but I can safely say that for the last 40 years, yeah, because I'll be 42 in October. So for the last 39 and a half years, um, I have thought that love between me and a man meant, physical distance, emotional distance, waiting for phone calls, right? And me feeling slightly uncomfortable the whole time and feeling like I have to work and earn their love. I have to work for them to love me. I have to look a certain way, be a certain way, blah, blah, blah. I want you guys to know how embarrassing it is saying these words out loud, especially because I'm pretty sure I said something similar in an episode 3 years ago, but we are evolving, we are expanding. Implementing this stuff takes practice, and I have had some practice. So, if you're in this place, my loves, if you're checking your phone, if you're waiting for proof that you matter, the way that someone exists in the world has nothing to do with you. It certainly doesn't define your worth. Oh my God, Kinga. None of that has anything to do with me. My patterns have to do with me and my uh existence, communication style, blah, 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 all of it. That's the only stuff that I can adjust. So, with that said, what does define me is how I choose to show up for myself. And I chose to freaking kibosh with a samurai sword this situationship. And then I sent a long text about my feelings, which, listen, I should not have done, especially with Mercury being in retrograde. Just I will never live this one down. Uh but I did. I ended it. I was the one that was like, I feel this person pulling away, and I'm like, I literally like again, and I'm like, I literally can't like handle this anymore. So, I mean, the last thing he said to me was, "How was your day?" My day was fucked up, dude. Um, So this doesn't only apply to relationships like with people. This is the same energy that women bring to their relationship with alcohol. We chase that relief. We seek out the dopamine hit. We stay in this loop of wanting something to feel better. even when it's the very thing that makes us feel worse. Right? We do that with alcohol. I did that in my situationship. So breaking free from that is incredibly painful, and many tears were shed. But I have deleted everything, DMs, text thread, deleted him off my socials. Um, and I did that yesterday. And I am I am a brand new woman today. Like I was not this yesterday. So my challenge to you, if you feel so inclined, is to take note, just reflect a little bit, and take note of your patterns. Um, who are you hooked on? What are you hooked on? What are you doing to like cure or find relief from your anxiety? What are you really looking for? And then see if you can give it to yourself. And if all else fails, make a playlist of very upbeat, empowered songs by female singers. Um, that's what I did this morning. It was fucking fantastic. So that's the work though. That's the work. That's the self-control, the self-trust, the self-worth, is paying attention to yourself, figuring out what's missing, and seeing if you can give that to yourself. And I promise you, I mean, it's only been one day, and I imagine I'm going to feel like a gaping void eventually, but I will cross that bridge when I get there, and I will not be reaching out to exes. Oh my God, or any new men for that matter. My friend Kelly thinks I should date a lawyer, and I feel like that would be a really good match for me. So if you know any single lawyers that are, interested in music, and I just feel like we could have like really good chats. I like how lawyers' brains work. Anyways, outside of random cute lawyers who like music as much as I do not fucking slide into my DMs. I'm not talking to anybody right now. I feel so good. I'm so happy to be on my own, and I love this. So if this resonated with you, leave a comment. DM me on Instagram. Shit, I love that. I want to hear your thoughts. I want to hear your experience. And I want to know if you know any cute lawyers who like music. So if you are a woman who is struggling with her relationship with alcohol, that I can for sure help you with. DM me on Instagram or on Facebook. Just type my name into the Facebook search bar. There's probably only 3 of me that will show up, and it'll be me and my 2 business pages. Shoot me a DM there, and I'll point you in the direction of my free masterclass, and we'll see if this is a relationship worth having. I always show up for my clients. I'll tell you that. All right, this is it. Welcome back, Kinga. I don't know. God only knows what's going to happen, but I will keep you guys posted. That's the tea. And for those women that show up in my DMs asking about my relationship status, there you have it. There's everything you need to know. I love you. You are stronger. Oh, you know what? I'll post my masterclass link in the show notes in case you need it. So I love you. You are stronger than you think. You are probably way too good for that person. And you are so super worthy of more. Thanks for listening. I'll see you soon. Love you. Bye.